Why is your name still on this folder? That's what Tyler asked me the morning after his uncle retired. No greeting. No handshake. Just that smug little tilt of the head. He thinks makes him look like Steve Jobs and not a kid who looks like he'd get carded buying a Monster Energy. I'd been in that building longer than the paint on the goddamn walls. 15 years. 3 office moves. 4 CEOs. 5 major rewrites of that one contract. Our crown jewel. The $50 million legacy client that paid every bonus check Tyler's frat bros were now cashing. And yet there he was, holding the manila folder with my tabs still in it like it was a roach infestation. Because I built it, I said, sipping the coffee I made in the dented Mr. Coffee I'd brought in from home when the startup clowns demanded we switch to cold brew taps. That folder is the account. He fake laughed, the kind of forced nasal chuckle that people use to show dominance in meetings. Well, we're rebranding. Streamlining things. The whole company needs to be more agile. More modern. I'd heard this before. Every new VP, every incoming C-suite MBA with a LinkedIn following and a podcast, they all said the same thing. Legacy is dead. Until they realized legacy was the only thing keeping the lights on. Still, I didn't argue. Not worth it. You don't throw a punch in a burning house. You find the exit, you wait, and if the fire doesn't kill them, the smoke will. See, the thing about long-term clients, especially the ones who've been with you through 4 product overhauls, 2 market collapses, and a global damn pandemic, is that trust doesn't live in logos. It lives in people. Phone calls at midnight. Risk disclosures rewritten after hours. Clauses that never made it into the glossy PowerPoints but saved their asses when the feds came knocking. That folder Tyler was sneering at? It held 15 years of handshakes. And more importantly, a clause buried so deep his shiny new legal team wouldn't find it unless they were looking for it. And they weren't. Because they didn't even know it existed. Not yet. By lunch, my office had been moved. Not fired, just repurposed. Advisory role. No team. No meetings. No email access to the client. My badge still worked, but the system locked me out of the shared drives by 3 p.m. Tyler sent out a company-wide Slack message with a slide deck titled Fresh Start. His opening line. The world doesn't reward tenure. It rewards velocity. Cute. They gave my account, a multi-million-dollar behemoth, with contractual labyrinths so complex we once had to fly out 2 lawyers just to explain one clause, to a project manager named Zoe. Bright girl. Green as spinach. Her greatest accomplishment, according to the email introducing her to the client, was organizing last year's Pride Month karaoke night. This was the part where I was supposed to feel anger. Or betrayal. Or at least panic. I felt nothing. Because I'd already seen it. Hell, I'd trained people who tried to pull this move. They walk in thinking history is just dead weight, not realizing that every clean slate they're so eager to draw comes with invisible ink. Legal ink, contractual ink, my ink. So I sat at my new desk, next to the supply closet, under a flickering light, and quietly printed a copy of the contract. The full thing. All 192 pages. Then I opened the original PDF I'd archived 5 years ago, just after the last renegotiation. Not the version on the shared drive. Not the version Tyler's team used. Mine, signed and sealed, with the client's counsel CC'd and time-stamped. And I highlighted the clause. The one no one remembered. Or rather, the one no one knew they needed to remember until it was too late. I put the printout in a fresh folder. Same color. Same tabs. Different outcome. Then I waited. Because the dust only settles when the stampede stops. And Tyler. He hadn't even started running yet. They called it a brand reset town hall. Tyler rolled in 15 minutes late, wearing white sneakers with no socks and that smug, VC startup grin that made you want to shove a slide deck down his throat. His hair looked wet, like he'd showered in kombucha, and he opened with, "Let's disrupt ourselves before the market does." Everyone clapped. Like seals at a SeaWorld feeding. Half of them scared, the other half too new to know any better. I just sat in the back corner, same spot I'd been in since we moved to the open floor plan, back when collaboration just meant hearing 30 people chew salad at once. But I didn't chew. I watched. The screen behind him lit up. New logo, flat, lowercase font, no soul. Clean. Minimalist. Universal, Tyler said. As if Helvetica could magically offset his incompetence. Then came the org chart. He clicked through it like he was flipping channels. My name? Gone. Just not there. Like 15 years of back-end architecture, escalation protocols, crisis mediation, multi-region compliance mapping. Poof. Replaced by a flowchart so shallow, it looked like it was built in Canva by someone who thinks deliverables is a personality trait. And finally, Tyler said, turning to the slide that showed a smiling headshot of himself next to the title Executive Client Lead, North America, I'll be personally managing the transition of our most important account to reflect our new strategic vision. That's the $50 million account. My account. The one I built from a 1-year pilot into a decade-plus relationship that withstood 3 market downturns and 2 mergers. Now being handed to a man whose greatest negotiation tactic is dropping words like synergy stack and customer-centric modality until the room gives up. My chest got tight, not from sadness, rage. Silent, white-hot rage. The kind that doesn't yell. The kind that memorizes. Someone asked, "What about my name?" He's worked with the client since. Tyler waved it off with a smile that could have sold timeshares. Don't take it personally. We're just evolving. Legacy naming conventions can sometimes confuse ownership. We want clean lines, clean roles. Confuse ownership? I was the goddamn reason the contract existed. Every retention clause, every client-side SLA exception, every C-suite relationship we built over late nights, funerals, and yes, even the CEO's daughter's wedding. Those didn't confuse ownership. They were ownership. But I didn't say a word. I closed my notepad. I stood up. I walked out. Later that afternoon, I logged into the secure archive I'd maintained off-platform, because when you've been burned enough times, you stop trusting cloud storage managed by Tyler's fraternity brothers. There it was, the renewal draft. The real one. The one the client's legal team and I spent 6 weeks sculpting like a damn Michelangelo marble. Terms, amendments, rider conditions, and the clause. Any material renewal, renegotiation, or continuation of contract must include written and recorded approval from my full name, or be considered null and void. Boilerplate? No. That clause was born out of a situation where another, strategic rebrand, almost cost the client a government compliance certification. The client CEO asked for it personally, back in 2018. Called it a safety net against future egos. Well, here we are. I downloaded the full PDF, made a clean printed copy, stored one at home, one in a safe. I wasn't going to beg for recognition. I wasn't going to argue over slides. Tyler thought names didn't matter. That was fine. Soon he was going to learn there's a difference between being visible and being necessary. They didn't fire me. That would have taken guts. No, they did something worse. They moved me into an advisory role, corporate hospice. I didn't get a goodbye party, just an Outlook calendar update that said, effective immediately, you've been transitioned into a strategic advisory function. Please direct all client-facing communications through the new renewal team. No more meetings. No more access to the live accounts. My badge still worked, but my Slack was eerily quiet, like someone turned down the volume on my entire existence. The junior team Tyler assigned to handle the renewal looked like they were still trying to grow their first chin hair. Good kids, maybe. Smart, maybe. But they had no idea what they were touching. That account wasn't just numbers and timelines. It was legacy code wrapped in human trust. You don't hand a Faberge egg to a toddler and call it fresh perspective. They sent the renewal draft out within the week. No es que laschen proutecals. No pre-call. No soft ping to the liaison to set expectations. Just an email with a PDF attached and a smiling, let us know your thoughts. Silence. For days. Then a fifth. On day 6, I got a message, not through the company system, but my personal LinkedIn. It was from the client liaison, Michelle. We'd been through 5 budget cycles together, once even shared a whiskey in the lobby of a Marriott after pulling an all-nighter pre-audit. She was the kind of woman who didn't waste characters. Her message was 3 words. Are you gone? I stared at the screen for a while, then typed back. No. Just demoted to ghost. Her reply came almost instantly. That explains the draft. Norai. No expletives. But that one sentence carried more dread than a firing squad. It was working. Tyler's new vision was starting to land, like a brick through glass. The day after, the client CEO himself forwarded a calendar invite to a call with our team. Oddly formal. Subject line, contractual clarifications. Tyler accepted. His junior PMs accepted. My name wasn't on the invite, of course. But I knew the script already. Because I helped write it. The clause would come up. Maybe not at first. Maybe they'd play nice, ask some clarifying questions, pretend to give the kids a fair shot. But eventually someone, probably their in-house counsel, would open page 174, subsection 22.6b, and read what I planted there years ago. Not a trap. Not revenge. Just clarity. Because that clause didn't exist to protect me. It existed to protect them. From people like Tyler. Meanwhile, I kept showing up. Punched in every morning at 8:57, just to beat Tyler by 3 minutes. Sat at my tiny desk by the copy machine. Ran old numbers through dead spreadsheets. Sorted files that didn't need sorting. I even started organizing archived hard drives by year. Pure busy work. But I did it all with the calm of a man watching the water rise on a cruise ship with too few lifeboats. Tyler, meanwhile, floated around the office like he was on a TED Talk stage. New haircut. New catchphrases. Started saying frictionless a lot. Frictionless, huh? We'll see. Because friction only happens when something moves. And Tyler, he was about to slam headfirst into something immovable. Me. And a clause with my name on it. By the end of week 3, Tyler's team sent the final draft to the client, complete with a pastel-colored cover letter signed by him. Executive Client Lead North America. Bold move, considering the last time he interacted with the client's CEO was during the founder's retirement party, where he mistook the man's wife for his executive assistant. Twice. The email went out on a Thursday afternoon. By Friday morning, we had a response. Not from the CEO, not even from Michelle, the liaison. It came from their legal department. Polite. Crisp. Lethally neutral. We'd like to schedule a call early next week to review a few points in the updated agreement. Please ensure all relevant personnel are present. Tyler forwarded it to the junior team with a subject line that read, easy peasy. Just standard contract language. He didn't know. They didn't know. I did. I wasn't on the invite. Of course not. Tyler didn't even mention it when he passed me in the hallway, sipping his kombucha, talking too loudly into his AirPods about streamlining touchpoints. But I knew. I knew because this was exactly the tempo we used when the client smelled bullshit. They wouldn't come in hot. They'd play it cordial, maybe even generous. Give you enough rope to tie a bow or hang yourself. Michelle didn't reach out again. She didn't have to. I'd already pulled the old hard copy out of my safe at home. It still had the original wet signatures. Mine. Theirs. The founders. The clause marked in red ink and triple initialed. I didn't plan to crash the meeting. That's not my style. Let Tyler bask. Let him show up with his recycled LinkedIn jargon and his half-baked legal team. Let him think he was negotiating. What he was really doing was introducing himself to a landmine. Friday afternoon, I overheard one of the junior PMs outside the break room, nervously whispering, "Do we know what the client's actually concerned about?" The other shrugged. Probably formatting or something dumb. Tyler said it's just a formality. Just a formality. God, they really didn't read it. Not one of them. They were all so busy sanding down the rough edges of what they called legacy contracts that they forgot why the edges were there in the first place. To keep people like them from slicing the whole company's throat while smiling. I spent the weekend cleaning my garage. The air was cooler than usual. Felt like a storm was coming, and not the kind you could see on radar. I wasn't angry anymore. Not in the way I had been in the beginning. This wasn't personal vengeance. It was gravitational. Inevitable. Monday morning, I wore a tie. First time in months. The same one I wore to the original signing meeting for the contract years ago. Navy blue, subtle diagonal stripes. I even shined my shoes. No one noticed. Tyler didn't even come in until 20 minutes before the call. He was carrying a smoothie and a brand new notepad, leather-bound, embossed with his initials. Preparing for battle, dressed like brunch. The meeting was scheduled for noon. I watched the clock tick down like a man waiting for the ground to open. At 11:57, I walked past the glass conference room and caught a glimpse. Tyler, flanked by his agile team, laptops open, every face bright with overconfidence. I returned to my desk, opened the original contract on my screen, highlighted the clause again. Then I minimized the window, poured myself a fresh cup of burnt breakroom coffee, and sat down. Back straight, calm, still. Somewhere in that room, a call was connecting. A screen was being shared. Smiles were being flashed. Introductions exchanged. And someone, probably the client's legal lead, was about to say, "There's a clause here we need to discuss." Page 174. And I would be right where I needed to be. Not in the room, but in the paperwork. The call started like they always do. Too many boxes on the screen. Too many smiles stretched just a bit too tight. Tyler opened with a joke. Something about boomer contracts and how their new platform was as sleek as a Tesla and twice as fast. Nobody laughed. Except one of the junior PMs, who fake chuckled like it was her rent payment on the line. Client CEO Mr. Abramson was on mute at first, watching. Always watching. You could see the years in his face, creased, unreadable. A man who'd built his empire one contract at a time, never forgetting who handed him the pen. Michelle sat quietly beside him, eyes flicking between documents and the new screen share. But the one who mattered was the fourth square, Lucille Grant, their senior in-house counsel. Lucille didn't blink unless it was strategic. And today she was blinking a lot. Tyler was still riding high, flipping through his slide deck like a magician performing card tricks. New KPIs. New CRM flowcharts. A vision alignment dashboard that had more colors than content. "We're excited to evolve this partnership into its next phase," he said. "Our updated renewal reflects not just the value we deliver, but the agility we're committed to maintaining." Agility, velocity, evolution. Every word he spoke dug him a little deeper. Then Lucille unmuted. "If I may," she said, calm as a scalpel. "We reviewed the new document in detail. Overall, it appears satisfactory. However," pause. Always a pause. "There's a clause here, Section 22.6b, that references a required signatory." Tyler didn't hesitate. "That's outdated. We've replaced him." You could hear the sentence echo in that sterile conference room like someone had dropped a fork during a funeral. Abramson didn't speak. He just leaned back and gave the smallest nod toward Lucille. She clicked her mouse. Everyone heard the gentle ding of a page scroll. She read slowly. "Any material renewal, renegotiation, or continuation of contract must include written and recorded approval from protagonist's full name, or be considered null and void." Silence. Then Tyler laughed, a quick, nervous puff of air, like someone trying to act casual while realizing they'd stepped onto a frozen lake. "I mean, come on. That's clearly just boilerplate. Legacy fluff. It's not legally binding anymore." Lucille blinked once. "We don't include fluff in our contracts." Tyler straightened his shoulders. "Well, I've taken over the account. I'm sure we can just update that on our end and move forward." Abramson finally unmuted. His voice was gravel on concrete. "No." One word. Not shouted. Just planted. He looked off camera briefly, then leaned forward until only the top half of his face filled the screen. Eyes like a man who's seen people drown while trying to sell him lifeboats. "That clause was added by request. My request. After the last restructure almost cost us a federal compliance cert because someone decided to modernize without oversight." He paused again, letting it hang. "I personally asked that man, your so-called legacy, to be our continuity assurance. That clause is not symbolic. It is contractual." Tyler's Adam's apple jumped. "Well, we can sort this out internally, of course." Abramson held up a hand, palm out. "This conversation is over." Lucille, with the precision of someone closing a casket lid, ended screen share and shut her laptop. Michelle gave one last look, almost apologetic, to the junior team. Then the screen went black. No signatures. No handshake. Just dead air, and the ticking of the wall clock behind Tyler's stunned reflection in the glass. I watched it all from the shadows of my peripheral vision. Heard the click of his headset coming off. The whispered, "What the hell just happened?" What happened, Tyler, was gravity. And you never read the altitude warning. The silence after Lucille read the clause was biblical. Not awkward. Not tense. Still. You could almost hear the cooling fans in Tyler's laptop trying to compensate for the heat pouring off his ego. His hands hovered near his keyboard like he wanted to type something. Anything. That would pull the moment back from the cliff. But cliffs don't care about feelings. And contracts don't care about rebrands. He blinked hard. Swallowed. Said, "We assumed that was boilerplate." Lucille didn't raise her voice. She didn't even look irritated. That's what made it worse. She adjusted her glasses like she was filing a nail. "You assumed wrong." Another pause. 1 second too long for comfort. 2 seconds too long for confidence. Abramson didn't speak. Just folded his hands under his chin. When a billionaire folds his hands, it's not out of courtesy, it's a countdown. Tyler tried to pivot. He leaned forward, elbows on the table like some kind of TED Talk hostage negotiator. "Look, we're happy to bring him in. Loop him in. Get the signature. We can fix this fast." Lucille raised a single brow. "It's not about fixing. It's about compliance. That clause exists because we required it. If the designated signatory is no longer with your firm, the contract is invalid until amended by him." She emphasized the last two words like a judge reading a verdict. Tyler looked around the room like maybe one of the interns would chime in and save him. No one did. He tapped his pen. Once. Twice. 3 times. And then, without another word, Abramson reached forward and ended the call. "No thank you. No, we'll be in touch." Just a screen full of meeting ended, and the glassy-eyed reflection of a man who thought his last name would protect him from gravity. In the silence that followed, I heard Tyler say to himself, barely audible, "This is not happening." But it was. Because somewhere in the building, just 20 feet away, sitting beside the backup printer in an unlit corner office, I was sipping the same burned coffee I'd been drinking for 15 years, watching the time on the wall clock tick toward lunchtime. The clause was always meant to be a shield, not a sword. But when you hand the wrong man a spotlight and strip the right man of his name, the shield becomes the sharpest thing in the room. Tyler thought I was just a relic. A leftover. A speed bump on his way to LinkedIn glory. But now he'd discovered what happens when you rebrand, without reading the fine print. No renewal. No contract. No revenue. Just one line. One name. Mine.it started like a hairline crack in a windshield, barely visible at first, but growing by the hour. Monday evening, the finance team's Slack lit up like a Christmas tree. Projections weren't aligning. Forecast sheets showed a $50 million hole shaped exactly like the contract Tyler had just fumbled. You could almost hear the collective heartbeat of the C-suite jump out of sync. Tuesday morning, I arrived early. Same time as always. 8:57. Tyler's Tesla wasn't in his spot. When he finally rolled in around 9:40, his face looked like he'd slept inside a spreadsheet. He walked fast. Too fast. When overconfidence breaks, speed becomes a substitute for control. He barked something at an intern, didn't even make eye contact, then vanished into his glass office like a man trying to unring a bell. I opened an old drawer in my desk, pulled out a folder labeled Vendor History, Legacy Accounts. Not because anyone asked me to. Not because it was relevant. Just because it gave my hands something to do while the ship creaked. At 10:06 a.m., Tyler's assistant burst into the break room holding her phone like it had personally offended her. The client wasn't replying. Not to calls. Not to emails. Not even the "hope you're well" LinkedIn DMs Tyler sent like digital smoke signals. By 11:30, a board member showed up. In person. That never happened unless someone died or sued the company. He walked straight into the main conference room, didn't say a word to anyone. 10 minutes later, another joined. Then another. And by noon, the founder himself, Tyler's uncle, showed up. Retired or not, When a $50 million artery gets severed, even ghosts get summoned. Tyler paced the hallway outside the boardroom like a man about to take his own deposition. His shirt was wrinkled, hair wild. He passed me once, eyes flicking toward my desk, then away, like he saw the shape of the knife but couldn't find the handle. I didn't move. I kept sipping my coffee, same chipped mug. #1 account manager, printed in a font that hadn't been cool since dial-up. I didn't speak, didn't smirk, didn't offer help. Because sometimes silence isn't avoidance. It's a mirror. At 1:17 p.m., Tyler was called into the boardroom. The door shut behind him like a final punctuation mark. The rest of the office was still, the way animals go quiet before a storm. Someone from marketing whispered, "Is something happening?" I filed another old invoice, dated 2014. I remembered the day I negotiated that rate. 3 vendors tried to undercut us. The client stayed. Because I did. The irony of it all didn't hit me as justice. It felt inevitable. Because when you spend your life holding a bridge together with nothing but phone calls, white papers, and after-hours fixes, you learn a truth. Trust isn't loud. It doesn't wear a badge. And it sure as hell doesn't show up on Tyler's org charts. By 3 p.m., the boardroom door opened. Tyler came out pale, eyes hollowed. He walked right past me without a word. I didn't turn to look. Instead, I placed the folder back in the drawer, closed it gently, and returned to my coffee. No gloating. No victory lap. Just the quiet satisfaction of gravity doing its job. They called me in around 4:10. No formal invite, no email, just a sharp knock on my desk from one of the board aides. Someone too young to know who I used to be, but smart enough to know I wasn't just the guy parked beside the office ficus. The boardroom door was already open when I arrived. Everyone was seated. Tyler sat at the end of the table, no laptop, no notepad, just his hands clasped in front of him, knuckles white, like he was trying to squeeze reality back into shape. His uncle, the founder, sat 2 chairs down. First time I'd seen him in person since the retirement dinner. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes flicked up when I entered, and for the first time in weeks, I saw something behind them that resembled respect. Or maybe regret. They didn't waste time with small talk. The head of legal, Sandra, slid a printed copy of the renewal across the table. A yellow post-it stuck out from page 174. Highlighted, circled, annotated in someone's tidy legal script. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to. "I believe you're familiar with the clause in question," she said. I nodded once. Section 22.6b. I wrote it. Another board member, someone from finance, spoke up. "You wrote it, but who asked for it?" I looked directly at him. The client did. After a near miss in 2018, our internal leadership turnover spooked them. They needed a continuity assurance, someone they trusted. So we gave them one. I paused, letting the words settle. Tyler shifted in his seat. "It wasn't legal padding," I continued. "It was a signal that even if faces changed, someone was accountable. Someone who knew the bones of the deal, not just the headline numbers." One of the compliance officers leaned forward. "Why wasn't this clause flagged during the rebrand?" I didn't flinch. Because the team that took over didn't know where to look. And didn't think they had to. All eyes turned to Tyler. He opened his mouth like he had something to say, then thought better of it. He looked shrunk. Like someone had turned down the brightness on his whole body. The founder cleared his throat. "Why didn't you say something earlier?" I exhaled through my nose. Not angry, just tired. Because it wasn't my job to stop someone from skipping the manual. It was my job to write the manual in the first place. The room went quiet again. But it was a different kind of silence now. Heavy. Measured. Sandra broke it. We reached out to the client. They've confirmed. The clause is non-negotiable. The account will not proceed unless you're reinstated. Tyler looked up, blinking. Wait, what? I turned to him finally. Our first direct eye contact since this all began. It wasn't about trust in the company, I said evenly. It was trust in the person. You don't get that by showing up late with new logos and buzzwords. You get that by answering the phone at 2 a.m. when their systems go down. You get it by fixing things before they know they're broken. No venom. No triumph. Just the kind of truth that doesn't need italics. The founder sat back in his chair, staring long at the clause like it was a gravestone. Maybe it was. Then he nodded. Once. The meeting ended with no vote, no grand announcements. Just a shift. Something had been restored. Not through revenge. Not through noise. Through legacy. Ink on paper. And a name that never needed a spotlight to matter. ChatGPT сказал. It was a Wednesday morning when my phone rang. Not my work phone. The personal one. The same beat-up flip phone I kept for legacy clients and legacy clients only. No caller ID. Just a 6-second pause after I picked up, followed by the voice I hadn't heard in months. Still drink it black? It was Abramson. The man didn't waste syllables. Yes, I said. Good, he replied. Because I'm not calling to chat. I'm calling to sign. Another pause. But only with you. I didn't ask why. We both knew. He laid it out flat. Same terms. Same scope. No concessions. But the condition was non-negotiable. I had to be the strategic lead. Not an advisor. Not a name buried in footnotes. Lead. Or they walk. I didn't answer immediately. Not because I was hesitating, but because I wanted him to hear what Tyler had forgotten. That silence doesn't mean absence. It means control. I'll draw up the transition, I said finally. I don't care about the transition, he said. I care about the continuity. He hung up before I could say thank you. The board met within 2 hours. The vote wasn't unanimous, but it didn't have to be. Even Tyler didn't speak up. He just nodded, eyes glued to the table like it might tell him where it all went wrong. Maybe it already had. They reassigned him to internal innovation strategy. No client contact. No budget authority. Basically, a padded room with a whiteboard and no markers. By Friday, my credentials were restored. All access. All authority. My name reappeared on the org chart with a little asterisk next to it. Legacy Strategic Lead. They could call it whatever they wanted. The client knew the truth. Everyone did now. Monday morning, I logged into a Zoom call. Not just any call, the call. A pitch for expansion. New verticals. Broader scope. Same client. Bigger check. The room was full, client execs, our finance lead, a few fresh-faced junior staffers sitting up a little straighter than usual. On my side, the founder sat in. So did Sandra from legal. But all eyes landed on me. I didn't open with a slide. Didn't start with jargon. I started with a story. One time, in the middle of a service outage, we rerouted 6 servers manually just to keep one dashboard alive for your board. You didn't hear about it because we didn't write a blog post. We just fixed it. Michelle smiled in her square. We're not here to promise velocity, I said. We're here to promise certainty. No one interrupted. No one needed to. By the time we wrapped, Abramson said 2 words, send it. Later that afternoon, I opened the digital renewal. My name already filled in next to strategic lead. No edits. No markup. I scrolled to the bottom, hit sign and closed the file. Sat back in my chair. Poured one last cup of coffee from the stained pot nobody ever cleaned right. And I thought. Turns out, in a $50 million deal, the most valuable logo isn't on the letterhead, it's in the signature.